We really started, it's probably been 5 to 7 years, a focus on the trades, particularly with a focus on females in the trades and opening the doors. One of our big focus was on educating parents. We still face that stigma where people didn't necessarily see the trades as a viable option. But I have to tell you, we've had young women come back and who are roofers and HVAC specialists and talk about their journey and their careers and how wonderful it is. We have all female classes at some of our schools now in those shops. We have a trades trailer that travels to our elementary schools to start promoting trades in grade 7 and 8. Your basic skills around dexterity, using small tools. One of our amazing people built a portable welding simulator where the kids can put their hands in and feel what it looks like to do welding. And then we have another unique where on top of that, we have a chocolate factory in that school. That's part of a manufacturing with combines business, manufacturing, design, technology, and photography. So always looking for ways to engage kids in unique learning opportunities.
Happy New Year. It's 2026. How did we get here so fast? Well, excited though to be back with a number of new episodes of the CanadianEd Leadership Show. We took a little break over the holidays, but time to get things back going. And I'm excited today about our guest today, Lucia Reece, the Director of Education at Algoma District School Board, headquartered, if you will, in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. You know, longevity and leadership seems to be a very difficult thing in a lot of industries, and education is no different. There are not very many superintendents, i.e. directors of education in Canada, anywhere really, that have been there more than 10 years. 10 years is a very long time. If you hit that 10-year mark as a number one leader in your district, that says so much. Lucia has been now for 13, 14 years at Algoma. And I met her initially probably back in 2012 when she first began this role. And even at that time, very impressed with her just in terms of how she communicated and handled herself. But over the last year or so, I've been able to get to know her leadership style and her board a little bit more closely. And today's conversation really helps to highlight a couple of the key things about her leadership that I've witnessed and got to see and have continued to hear about. So the first thing I think that will stand out to you is the degree to which she wants to surround herself with people who are not like her, who don't think like her. And I saw this firsthand in meetings I've been with her where she is welcoming people to challenge her thinking. She has ideas, she has things that she wants to share, but she doesn't want those to be implemented without stress testing them amongst others. So really creating a team that is willing to think differently, not like her, and challenge each other's thinking. And then the second thing that is so powerful, and you heard the clip already, is how much they've focused on careers and education. And this sort of aligns with a couple of previous guests I've had, I think particularly of Mike McMahon and Mike Helm, who have really put a lot of energy and attention into helping build people in the trades industry specifically. And as you heard Lucia talk, females in particular. And I just think more and more this is really something that I would love to see schools double down on and really think about how they encourage kids to maybe not necessarily think about post-secondary education as their sort of number one goal, university, but maybe thinking about the trades. At any rate, I love lots of good things to share. So great to start the year off with somebody like Lucia Reece. So enjoy today's conversation. Lucia, I'm so glad that you're here. You and I have known each other for quite a while. And in fact, when I first got to know you during my time at Discovery and through ERDIs, you were in the role you are in now. And I don't know if you are the longest running director of education in Ontario, but if you're not the longest, you're pretty close.
Pretty close. That's very fair.
And longevity isn't always something that leaders, superintendents, i.e. directors, get to have because stuff happens. So what's the secret? How do you do this for so long?
I don't know that there's a secret, Dean, but I appreciate your word longevity because it's a very nice word rather than saying, why are you still working? And aren't you supposed to be retired by now? Which we get a lot of. But there's one reason I'm still working, and that's the amazing team that we've built here and the work that we're doing. They say, if you love what you're doing, you don't work a day in your life. And I truly believe, and I'm living that and think we're doing great things. There's no shortage of ideas, and we love genuinely coming to work and doing great stuff for kids. So it's motivating still. I think when you're still having fun, you've got your health, and there's really nowhere I'd rather be right now.
I can speak from experience, having spent time with you and your team. It's a very comfortable feeling. And one of the things that I noticed in my times with you is the way in which your team feels very comfortable pushing back on you and you pushing back on them. And there's no sort of like, and I have been in places where like I can tell they might be thinking something, but they don't want to say something because they're afraid they're going to offend or say the wrong thing. That was never the case. It was very just natural and saying, yeah, I don't know about this or what about this. And so I think about that idea of choosing your own team. And sometimes you don't get to do that. You inherit the team you have, and that can work. But I think about that. I think about schools that on the rare occasions when the principal's been able to really handpick their team more and how much more thriving that happens. So I I don't know. I'm not sure I'm formulating much of a question here other than a curiosity around like why that's such a big deal and how you get to get that opportunity. And
Yeah, I mean that's a great observation, I think, on your part. And when I started, obviously we had a team, but we had to start as we started to have turnover. I don't know if it's the power of hiring your own team. I think it's a gift to have had that opportunity to do that. And I truly believe, and I say it to our team and remind our team all the time, I don't need 5 or 6 people around the table who think like I do. And so when you're hiring, you're looking for people who bring a skill set that's different than yours, that can offset. We joke around the table often and say, we get paid to think of everything that might go wrong and then to put everything in place so that it won't. And if you're doing that, you need people who think differently, have different experiences. And I'd have to say that is the absolute gift of our team. We can ask each other, what do you mean by that? Why are you thinking? What about this? Or have you thought about this? And we're not afraid to push each other's thinking and to ask those questions because we have lived that we always land in a much better place when you're thinking about those things and trying to get out in front of things. So I think we push each other to excellence and innovation. And I appreciate your observation because that's something we strive to do around the table is to look at all angles. Have we missed anything? Is there something else we should be thinking of? And doing that. So having a gift to select some of those people who bring that different type of thinking and experience to the table really makes a difference.
so I've again been working with you and your team in the work around AI and have seen that. But obviously, when you think about all of your journey with this team and the way you've navigated, whether it's COVID or other kind of real challenges, do you have an example of maybe a challenge or a problem that you faced where your team maybe struggled with it and you can maybe point to a fact that, yeah, somebody pushed us on this because I was thinking this way and they said, but have you thought about this? So I'm just wondering if you have basically looking for an example that would exemplify what you're talking about.
Sure, there's probably many, but one of the most recent ones we've come through that we're quite proud of this year is we've had for a while a hockey academy and that served a certain population of students. And so kids spend their mornings on the ice. We've coupled it with program and we've always wanted to expand it. And we were nervous about that and thinking, how do we do that? What could it look like? Is that the right thing to do? Not all kids play sports. And what would that be? Some were nervous about what message does that send people if it's just about sports. And so we have pushed each other's thinking and talked about how we could do that and have come up with a vision, I suppose, around we enhanced our sports academy. We now offer it in 5 different sports, but we're also looking in other areas. We're looking at now, how can we take what we've learned through these sports academies and apply that in other areas? Maybe it's theater arts, maybe it's culinary, and now rather than go, because we needed to start somewhere to get an experience. So now we're looking at how do you make innovative programs that have kids running through the door in the morning where their interests are. We had to push back on each other. We've got some athletes around the table, those who aren't athletes around the table, recognizing public perception. How will this be received by parents? What about space? And which schools do you pick? And what will that message will that send to the community? And what about this community? And they don't have this or they have that. So it's just all those little pieces that, things you don't look at that when you go to implement something can grow into really big things. Having those voices around the table, talking about, and I'll give an example, could we make this work? And then it's someone with a strong secondary program background says, what if we tied it to these two courses? Maybe we could do this. And then somebody says, hey, I hadn't thought about that. And then what if we do this? And it's that ability to grow an idea and make it really viable. So that's probably a recent one where we needed to make all of these sports work through curriculum and through other opportunities and transportation. And by putting it on the table and rolling up our sleeves and everybody bringing their thinking to the table, we were able to get there.
So that, I appreciate that example, and it makes me segue into what I was really curious to learn from you, because you've talked about this in a little bit of fragments to me anyway. And so I'm not as aware of it as you are, but I think one of the things that I know you're proud of in your board is the way you've supported sort of that career pathways for kids moving forward. That's a big thing for Algoma. And I'd just love for you to talk a little bit about, because I get more fascinated as I work with different boards who are doing these kind of things and really being excited about the impact that's had. So maybe just provide a little bit of a context around how you're supporting kids in that career transition.
Sure. So I think one of our pain points, as it is in many other districts right now, post-COVID, has been attendance. And we looked at our data and said, what's going to get kids through the door at school? How do we create programs and opportunities, like I said, that they're running through the front door in the morning? And one of the things I think we're really proud of, and we say often, is that we have a program and pathway for every student. And part of that is because of what's happened in Ontario through a variety of different programming pieces, but it's also through some of the innovative thinking I think that we've brought to the table and be able to do that. The biggest one, of course, lately has been around our trade school that we're building. We've had a long time vision and dream to want to have a trade school. We have 3 high schools within our city, and we've known a long time. You can't do everything in every school. It just economically doesn't work. And so we become very intentional around focusing programs at each of those schools and have a vision around treating those schools like a campus. And you can put state-of-the-art things in one building and then let the kids go to that building. And so we asked ourselves one day, so I'll give you an example, that our French immersion program is in one high school and we're building a trades program at another school. I said, what if I'm a French immersion student who wants to go into the trades? Surely to goodness, we can figure out a way. And why couldn't we have this kind of fluidity between programs? But that trade school has been a long vision of putting in a lot of modernized shops. We knew we couldn't do it alone. We've had an amazing partnership in the Sioux community for over 25 years of a house building program. And so in conversation, we brought contractors to the table. We started bringing people to the table, tradespeople asking. We worked with our college and university. Tell us what's working for you. We were fortunate that our local college had been through a shop reno and said, don't make our mistake. Don't go with fixed pieces in your shops. Think flexibility, stuff you can move around. And we're creating a really unique situation at this school where it's the integration of all of the trades that will come together, where kids can work on a project that involves a number of different trades. We were fortunate that one of our local community partners connected us both to provincial voices, even nationally, made a connection to the Homes Group. So the Homes Group has worked side by side, as have a number of contractors and businesses giving us information. We really wanted to build something for the future. So the ability to have state-of-the-art shops, right from electric cars to all kinds of modern technologies and robotics. And we really started, it's probably been, I'm going to say 5 to 7 years of focus on the trades, particularly with a focus on females in the trades and opening the doors, lots of evening sessions. And one of our big focus was on educating parents. We still face that stigma where people didn't necessarily see the trades as a viable option. But I have to tell you, we've had young women come back and who are roofers and HVAC specialists and talk about their journey and their careers and how wonderful it is. We have all female classes that are some of our schools now in those shops. We have a trades trailer that travels to our elementary schools to start promoting trades in grade 7 and 8. Your basic skills around dexterity, using small tools. One of our amazing people built a portable welding simulator where the kids can put their hands in and feel what it looks like to do welding. And then we have another unique where on top of that, we have a chocolate factory in that school. That's part of a manufacturing which combines business, manufacturing, design, technology, and photography. So always looking for ways to engage kids in unique learning opportunities. What's going to get, and I love hearing, we were taught a presentation at our board meeting the other night, and one of the people from one of our academies was saying, I'm there early in the morning, but a lot of times I get there and the kids are there waiting. Can I go and get this, sir? Can I get this ready? That's what you want, is the kids coming and they're excited. So I have to say our team really shares that vision that we want kids excited about learning, getting them in the door into school, and just the creative ideas and innovation that we share around the table and that passion to do that has really helped us. So that's been a long time coming. And again, we could not have done where we are now without the partnerships we have out in the community, our tradespeople. We're in our phase 3 of that reno, and we're already thinking about the next phases that we want to go to in terms of what we want to offer. So I think it takes a lot of minds and hands to do that work. And we're very lucky that we have the partnerships that we do.
Just you sharing that, I mean, I'm smiling and I'm thinking in contrast to some of the stories that we see right now, particularly in Ontario and others around school boards that are managing things well, and just an attack on public education. And sort of an underlying theme or concept that you share is the hard work that, yes, and again, I love this partnership piece. That's a big part of it. But the fact that you as a team are committed to, like, how do we do better? How do we keep going more? And so I think when people hear that, they need to appreciate how hard our leaders, and again, I know that's happening in Algoma, but you're not the only school board that cares that much about kids, that wants the best for kids, and how can we get better than what we have. My observation is I just wish more people, the more public, would appreciate how caring and how thoughtful people are to try to make this work. Because the easy route would be to say, you know what, let's just give them a straight out, like, we've had an education system for long, like, just give them a diploma. We've done our job, like, good enough. But that's not good enough, isn't what you're going for here. What I do wonder though, Lou, and you could maybe you mentioned a little bit about people who've come, like the kids who have graduated, come back and spoken to that, the impact that this program has had, and again, the engagement factor that you allude to, the kids and teachers being so excited about it. I wonder about what kind of data you might have, because again, the story you're telling is powerful enough for me, but other people want to know, what data do you have that suggests that these programs are making a difference in kids' lives? And so I don't know what you have to share around that. Like, you have something to speak to.
Yeah, we do. We have started tracking. Certainly I don't have the numbers in front of me, but one of the things we've talked about is our sports academies have the highest attendance. There's 99.5% attendance, and credit accumulation is also off the scale. So we're starting to challenge again around some of these and think, okay, how can we measure some of these pieces? Exactly to your point. Some things are a little more difficult to measure than others, but certainly the attendance and the credit accumulation are big indicators. And we do have data around that, and we'll continue to get better at gathering some of that data. We're actually in a process now of creating dashboards of data, thanks to AI and some of the great things that Power BI and things can do. So we hope to get better at that. But we do have data, Dean, that indicates that these programs are increasing student success.
Yeah. And again, I think there's probably tons of ways. I'm thinking right now, chocolate, I'm thinking about hockey, I'm thinking about houses, welding, all of these diverse opportunities, right? Nothing is for everybody. And so you are trying to create whatever pathways you can for people, and you're just open to, like, that. And again, as you mentioned before, everybody saw the attendance from COVID just drop, and that was a struggle to get that back. And so maybe in that respect, COVID really did teach us a lot of things that we maybe weren't thinking
For
about
sure.
before, took for granted.
Yeah.
Again, just I think kudos to you. And I want to continue as I continue to work with your board, just learn more about some of these offerings. Because and again, as we communicate and tell these stories, there's the story, there's the human side of it, the girl or whatever, who's now the HVAC person. Those are great stories. The data, like all of it should be something that I don't know, we need to be doing a better job at celebrating, because as much as you spend time with the negative and the challenges that are there, and that's part of the job, there's just so much to celebrate, right? Like so much to say, wow, this is really
Yeah.
good stuff.
That's what keeps us going, right?
Yeah.
When you see that success, and it's comical. We had 3 former NHL players come to our hockey academy a few weeks ago, and they looked and they said, "Where was this when I was in school? If somebody
Right.
had told me I could wake up in the morning and spend half my morning on a rink, are you kidding me?"
Yeah, I guess. Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think it's just fantastic. And again, so I applaud you for that. So you've done a great job of highlighting your district, whatever. I want to just focus a little bit more on this idea of leadership in general, and how you not only, you talked about picking your own team and having those people, but also there has to be, I think, even more so now than ever before, intentional ways that we create leaders, like we help find them and build them, right? So when you think about that, and listen, I hope you stay in your role for a long time, but there will be a time
Yes, there will.
right, where you're not there anymore. And so there's this idea of succession. Like, how do we continue? Because I know even 10, 20 years from now, you want to be able to look back and still point to Algoma as a thriving place where there's confident and caring citizens, as your mission sort of suggests. So I guess I wonder, what are the ways in which that you are fostering leadership, in terms of whether it's opportunities, as well as just the message you would send to young educators in your board to say, hey, we want you to be thinking about this in the future. So how do you encourage that leadership?
That's been a real focus for us too, Dean. I think we have a senior team of a certain vintage, and our trustees certainly recognize that. And it's been a conversation. So we've done a few intentional things within the system in terms of creating positions to have a transition plan in place when we know that's up and coming. But even within I will say, our principal and vice principal group, we're probably a bit of an anomaly in the province, where we've invested and we have a lot of vice principals in our schools. We find ways to fund that because we see that as capacity building and transition building, and believe strongly in that model. And similarly, a number of years ago, we changed even our principal meetings. So we meet every month with our principals, and that we do 3 different parts. Sometimes we have an afternoon that is strictly focused on operational matters. And then the full day, part of that day is focused on leadership. And then part of that day is focused on the instructional and the program and the school improvement plans. And so really deliberately, one of our superintendents spearheaded and brought in and did a very lengthy, probably over 3 years, coaching program, building on our coaching skills, because we believe we're all coaches. We're all coaching somebody at some point. So we invested heavily in that model in terms of building that skill set across our leaders, both our vice principals, our principals. We actually included managers and others in that training as well, because it is a skill set and you have to practice it and you have to hone it. And then we talk about leadership on a broader scale in terms of developing our own leadership, and then building that leadership in a school setting, so that you are building leaders, giving people opportunities to learn and to grow. And I forget if it was Fullen or Leithwood or somebody wrote one time about encouraging people to pay attention. How do you talk about your job? What do you do in your job? Are you encouraging people to get on board, or are you frightening people away? And so I think as a leader, talking to our leaders about not just distributive leadership, but that shared ownership in a building, that we're all leaders, we're all in this together, and really working with them. So we try to bring in, portion of the morning is some research. It might be case studies about how would you manage this? What would need to be done? Relationship building. So I think we've really tried to focus on leadership, building their capacity, while knowing that we're building our succession plan at the same time. And I have to say, we've done a few environmental scans, and we're very happy because we know we'll have some upcoming retirements. And we do have a number of people not only interested in vice principal and principal roles, but in the superintendent role as well, which I talk to people across the province and in other provinces, it's getting harder and harder to attract people to those roles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to take the scariness away and help people see the joys of the job
That's
and
right.
help them see the successes and that we can have an impact. And I remind people, nobody leads alone. And so I guess for young people that are thinking about leadership, go for it, but also don't go for it alone. I always say to people, find that trusted colleague or that person who to take that journey with you, someone you can confide in, because they're not all going to be coming up roses every day. We know that. But you need that person that you can vent with, share with, confide in, and who's going to give you honest feedback. And we've spent a lot of time talking about feedback and how do you gather feedback about your leadership? Who do you ask? And how do you know? And what do you act on? And how? So we all need that feedback and we all need those trusted colleagues that help us grow and aren't afraid to say, what the heck were you thinking when you did that? Behind a closed door and can hash it out with us. Sometimes I think we have to remind people they're not alone and that you're going to build a team around you. You're going to have trusted colleagues who can help grow you and who you can confide in when you need to. And then it's not a bad role.
Yeah.
And in any of those. And we get to work with kids every day and we get to change lives. And I don't know what could be more exciting than that.
No, and that point I think is maybe very under considered is that how do you model and make leadership appealing to others, right? Because I know there are people who tend, and again, it's a bit of a self-awareness piece where you like all of a sudden everything I hear you talk about is all the bad things. And at some point I'm going to go like, I don't want that person's job. They got a terrible job. It stinks because all they're talking about is all the bad things. And that is not, again, then the people would push back, say, well, you don't want to be toxic positivity. No, that's not what that is. It's about, to your point, we're trying to make lives better for these people. That's a pretty honorable, awesome thing to do. And we're successful way more than we're not. And we ought to make, and like, because I remember in my own career, and you would have had them too, and I'm going to get to this question in a minute, but people that you looked at and said, I want her job. I'd like to have her job because she looks like she's having fun. And you do, Lou, and I can tell you that, again, it's not hard to be in a room with everybody because people are enjoying it. They're having fun. They're okay to make a joke once in a while. They know when to create some levity and say, listen, that's not, yes, it's serious, but it's not everything has to be that way. So let's enjoy that, but celebrate again and embrace the part that's hard, even when it is a hard thing. It's, this is hard. Yeah. We're going to have to figure it out. And really, I think that's an underrated part of leadership development is projecting what leadership can be to others.
Yeah. And it's not about burying your head in the sand and pretending there aren't bad days. But that's something else we've started to do is to share some of those and say, here was the problem that happened. And then we walk through, how did we solve it? And again, reminding people, it wasn't one person standing here solving this. You had 5 people in the room giving insight and thinking about it. And I think that helps people a lot because I think sometimes we don't think about that part of the picture is that you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that point, that's probably one of the reasons why I'm really enjoying the work with AI is because you can't hide from the fact that it's very problematic in so many ways. And let's acknowledge that. But at the same time, wow, there's some really interesting opportunities here that we explore. So it's a great sort of metaphor almost for a lot of the other work that we do. But I think in ways that now that we can just lay it out on the table and we don't have to, and again.
You froze, Dean.
Yeah, I think, again, I will mark.
Oh,
mark up.
I lost you there.
No, I lost you a little bit there as well. So that's okay.
Okay.
So the benefit of this particular application is that it's recording on your machine and my machine. So in the end, it'll all be good. So
okay.
No worry. Yeah,
it
says my network is struggling. Why is that?
Yeah.
Anyway,
you're chopping up there.
Okay, no worry. So transitioning to my next question, which is, and again, people hate this question because it's not easy, but I don't care. Not every question has to be easy. You got to name one person, Lou, today, one person that you're grateful for in education. It could be like somebody that you're working with today that's really whatever. It could be just an unsung hero, somebody that maybe other people don't think of. Anybody, one person you want to give a shout out today.
You know what? I've had some great mentors along the way. It's hard to pick one. People who pulled you aside and tell you what they notice and tap you. And so I'm very grateful. And my predecessor would say, we all stand on the shoulders of giants. And I think that's true. So I have appreciated along the way those who tapped me or who pulled me aside and pointed something out that maybe I could work on that in a way that was helpful and not to be. I have many along the way that I would thank. I want to do a shout out though, because someone who probably doesn't know their influence, but had some ongoing conversation and across the province. And I have such an admiration for Michael Fullen and the books he writes and the work he does. And I think I was so fortunate as a superintendent when I started. He was entering the scene, he was working with the government at the time, and just I feel so fortunate to have learned and grown so much. I joke all the time and I say, the more I learn, the more I have to go back and reread some of that material because it takes on a whole new breadth and depth. But just such an expert in the field and such a broad around the world and has seen so many districts and the work that he has shared with Ontario. I feel we are deeply indebted to his research and what he's done. And I know my own learning and what's carried me over the years has been that educational research piece and knowing that what we're doing is grounded in good things. I admire the work and what he's done for education.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to somebody this week who is at part of a sessions. I think they were AI related sessions that he was hosting too. And they're admiring the fact that here's somebody in their 80s who has no reason. Like, you could listen, you've done enough. You can shut it down. It's fine. And yet, no, he's still going hard, still trying to make a difference. So there's something to be said about that kind of commitment, because for him, it's not about anything more than just continuing to try to do this good work that's been very
and
helpful.
to learn,
Yeah.
continuing to learn.
Yeah. All right. So a couple of quick questions to get you out of here. Curious to know, what are you like reading or listening to as a professional in your learning journey? What's on your night table or your desk right now, or in your ear,
There's
whatever?
usually a pile on my desk and my table to read, but I am reading a lot of things related to AI right now because that's the world we're living in, and it's part of it's personal interest, part of it's for work. I am a bit of a junkie in terms of reading education stuff, but I do read stuff that's non-educational once in a while too, and love a good book like everybody else. And looking at some of the research, the anxious child, some of that stuff we need to be thinking about post-COVID and how we're supporting kids. And when I'm not reading, I mean, it's November, December, I'm sorry, but I am a Hallmark junkie too. So any
Good for you.
Christmas Hallmark movie, you will find me recording and finding an hour and a half, because I always say, after a long day, I just want something really happy.
That's right.
But I do read a lot of educational, and I'm poking away slowly at a PhD, so I've got a bit of the research bug and love reading research around education. So
Good for you. I didn't know you were pursuing that path. So what is your kind of focus in your PhD?
it is on the professional learning and development of Ontario's directors of education.
Oh, wow. Okay. We will need to talk more and further about that. That's fascinating. And yeah, I mean, and again, my great little privilege is I get to work in all the different provinces and see how each of them has a culture and a context and a focus. And I will be very curious to see what your findings are and how they jive with I have, again, it's not an in-depth knowledge, but enough of a knowledge to be curious about that. So so how far along are you in that journey?
I've done my research and I'm writing, and I've had to take a bit of a pause right now, but I'm going to be getting back at it. So I'm in the writing stage, trying to pull it all together. So
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Good for
Yeah.
you. Okay. My last question. And listen, I've been to the Sioux a number of times, but never long enough. And I know when I was there I can't remember not the last, but the time before I was just before the peep season, whatever. The colors turning.
I was just going to say, you couldn't get a room. The fall run, we call it.
That's right. Couldn't get a room.
Oh.
And again, just timing wasn't there. But all right, I want you to give me the insider's hidden gem of a thing to do in the Sioux that maybe wouldn't come out on a initial Google search, but like a place that it could be anything. It could be a restaurant, it could be a park, it could be an activity, just something that's maybe locals know, but maybe the rest of us wouldn't get there without some sort of hint from somebody like you. So where's that sort of insider place I should think about?
There are no shortage of beautiful spots. As we're in the heart of the Great Lakes and on Lake Superior, I would say one of my favorite spots is Pancake Bay, about an hour north to the Sioux. And in the summertime on a day, take a book, pack a little picnic basket and go. And it's just That expanse of area and lake is absolutely spectacular and can just take your mind away. And it's a beautiful spot to relax and enjoy a beautiful scene. And it's
Pancake Lake,
quiet and it's Pancake Bay and it's
Pancake
just
Bay.
amazing.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
it's a
remember
personal
that.
favorite. And there'd be no shortage of great Italian restaurants. You know that here in this. Lots
Okay,
of
tell me next time I come. Maybe give me enough time. Tell me
All
where I
right.
should go.
All right, we will do that. My personal favorite is Arturo's, two brothers, and really wonderful experience. It's not just a meal, it's an experience. So we'll have to do that.
Okay, that sounds good. Listen, I appreciate your time and I always appreciate the work that you've done over the years. And it was just great to have a little bit of concentrated time to dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that are happening in Algoma. But I continue to look forward to working with you and your team. So thanks.
Thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you again soon.